The Tellurian vessels appeared in Earth's orbit without warning on a cold December morning. They were massive, disc-shaped crafts that blocked out the sun in parts of the northern hemisphere. Scientists and military personnel scrambled to make sense of the situation as global communications went haywire. Commander Dak stood on the bridge of the lead ship, his tall frame casting a long shadow. He looked at the blue planet with cold calculation. His species had conquered 12 worlds already, and Earth would be the 13th. "Analysis complete," said Umi, the chief science officer. She projected a hologram showing human biological data. "These creatures are fragile, their bodies break easily. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. They will make excellent labor for the mining operations." Dak nodded. "Where should we begin the landing?" "Their northern regions are sparsely populated. We can establish bases there with minimal resistance before moving to the population centers." Within hours, 5 smaller ships detached from the main fleet. They descended toward Earth, targeting remote areas in Siberia, Alaska, and northern Canada. The plan was simple: establish beachheads where human resistance would be weakest, then expand outward. In a small village near Lake Baikal, Kim was chopping wood when he saw the strange light in the sky. The former military strategist had moved to the wilderness after leaving the army, preferring the quiet life of a hunter. But he recognized a threat when he saw one. "Everyone inside," he shouted to the villagers. "Gather all weapons and supplies." The Tellurian ship landed 3 kilometers from the village. Alien soldiers emerged, their skin a pale blue, their eyes large and black. They wore armor that glowed with strange energy, and carried weapons unlike anything humans had ever seen. "Fan." "Out," ordered Captain Lee, leading the first alien patrol. "The sensors show a small settlement nearby. Should be easy to subdue." The aliens moved through the forest with confidence but struggled in the deep snow. Their movements became slower as the temperature dropped with the setting sun. Several soldiers adjusted their suit settings, uncomfortable in the cold that was mild by Siberian standards. Kim watched them through binoculars from behind a fallen tree. He noticed how they constantly adjusted their equipment. "They don't like the cold," he whispered to the 3 hunters beside him. Back in the Tellurian command ship, Dak received the first reports. "Minor resistance at landing site 3. 4 soldiers lost." "Lost? To primitive weapons?" Dak couldn't hide his surprise. The reports mentioned something about the cold affecting shield functionality. Nothing serious, but unexpected. Dak dismissed the concern. "Adjust the equipment. Continue as planned." In Washington, generals gathered in an emergency meeting. Reports came in from Alaska, where another alien ship had landed. Similar situations were developing across the northern regions. "They're targeting remote areas first," said General Park, "but they're facing resistance. The cold seems to affect their technology." "We need to buy time," responded the president. "Contact anyone in those regions. Tell them to hold the line while we organize a proper response." Kim and his group had already destroyed an alien patrol without firing a shot. They lured the soldiers onto the frozen lake where the ice cracked under their weight. The aliens, heavy equipment dragged them under. Their suits, designed for space travel and combat, became death traps in the icy water. "They don't understand our world," Kim told the villagers that night. "They came prepared for a fight, but not for winter. We can use that." As night fell across the northern hemisphere, resistance grew. In Alaska, Inuit hunters used their knowledge of the terrain to ambush alien patrols. In Canada, loggers and trappers formed militia groups moving through forests the aliens found impenetrable. On the main ship, Umi presented updated findings. "Commander, we may have underestimated the humans' adaptability. They're using the environment against us." Dak looked at the mounting reports of equipment failures and lost patrols. What was supposed to be a simple occupation was becoming complicated. But he had conquered worlds before. These humans would learn their place. "Launch more ships," he ordered. "We will crush this resistance quickly." He didn't understand yet what Kim and thousands like him already knew. The aliens had made a critical mistake. They had judged humanity by their technology, not by their spirit. and they had chosen to invade during winter, when humans were at their most resilient. The battle for Earth had just begun, and already blood stained the snow. 3 months had passed since the Tellurians first landed on Earth. Winter had deepened, bringing temperatures that plunged to 40 below zero across the northern regions. What the aliens had thought would be a quick conquest had turned into a grueling struggle against both humans and the harsh environment. Captain June sat in his cabin, a former ranger station deep in the Canadian wilderness. Maps covered the wooden table marked with the locations of alien outposts. Outside, the wind howled, but inside, the wood stove kept the small space warm. "Their patrols are becoming more predictable," June said to the group gathered around him. These were not soldiers, but park rangers, hunters, and local guides, people who knew how to survive when the world turned white and cold. Hana, an environmental engineer who had been studying samples of alien technology, pointed to a chart. Their energy shields fail completely at -30. Their weapons lose 15% efficiency for every 10 degrees below freezing. "How do you know this?" asked one of the hunters. "I've been testing components from the patrol we ambushed last week," she replied. "Their materials aren't designed for Earth's temperature extremes. They expected an easy fight, not a winter war." Across the planet, similar resistance groups had formed. They shared information through old shortwave radios, which were too simple for the aliens to effectively monitor. The pattern was the same everywhere. The Tellurians struggled in the cold while humans used the harsh conditions to their advantage. Commander Dak paced the command center of his ship, frustration evident in his sharp movements. The holographic display showed another patrol lost in the Ural Mountains. "How can these primitives be causing so much trouble?" he demanded. "They have nothing but simple projectile weapons." Umi, now looking less confident than when they arrived, displayed the latest data. "Their bodies are naturally adapted to survive in these conditions. Our troops are experiencing equipment failures we didn't anticipate. The chemical reactions that power our shields don't function properly in extreme cold. Then send more troops. Double the patrols." "With respect, Commander," said one of his officers. "Increasing patrol frequency isn't working. We lose more soldiers each week." Dak slammed his fist down. "We've conquered 12 worlds. We will not be defeated by creatures who haven't even left their own planet." Unknown to Dak, Major Song was coordinating a global response from a bunker beneath Seoul. Military leaders from nations that had been enemies just months ago now worked together, sharing resources and strategies. "The aliens hold the major cities, but they can't control the wilderness," Song explained during a secure video conference. "Captain June's team has developed methods to accelerate the failure of their technology. We need to distribute these techniques to all resistance cells." "What about their ships?" Ken asked a general from Russia. "They're vulnerable when landing or taking off. That's when we strike." Song outlined Operation Snowfall, a coordinated attack planned for the deepest part of winter when alien technology would be at its weakest. In the Canadian forest, June led a small team through the darkness. The moon reflected off the snow, providing just enough light to move without lamps. They approached an alien outpost, a geometric structure that looked out of place among the pines. "Remember," June whispered, "they can't see well in the dark and the cold makes their movements slow. Use that." The team carried weapons coated in a substance Hana had developed, a mixture that would accelerate the freezing of alien equipment. They moved silently, their bodies accustomed to traversing snow without sound. When the attack came, it was swift. The aliens, struggling with malfunctioning sensors, didn't detect the humans until they were already inside the perimeter. By morning, another outpost had fallen, and the resistance had more alien technology to study and exploit. Commander Dak received the news with growing rage. "This cannot continue. Prepare for orbital strikes. We'll burn their resistance from above." "Commander," Umi cautioned, "large-scale bombardment will damage the resources we came to extract." "I don't care. These humans need to learn their place, Dak issued his orders. He didn't know that his communications were being monitored. Thanks to Professor Park's reverse-engineered devices, Resistance forces knew about the planned orbital strikes before the alien ships began to move into position, and as the bitter cold of winter deepened, Operation Snowfall moved from planning to action, humanity preparing to show the Tellurians exactly what they had underestimated. The Tellurian Scientific Council gathered in the central chamber of the command ship. The mood was tense. 5 months into what should have been a simple conquest, their forces were suffering unexpected defeats across Earth's northern regions. Lead researcher Tay stood before the holographic display, his usual confidence replaced by confusion. "We have a fundamental problem. Our initial assessment of humans was wrong." The display showed footage of humans moving through blizzard conditions, setting traps and surviving in temperatures that Tellurians found nearly unbearable. Another clip showed a human child playing in snow while nearby. A Tellurian soldier struggled to maintain basic functions in the same environment. "Their adaptability exceeds anything we've encountered on previous worlds," Tay explained. "They don't just survive in these conditions, they thrive in them. They've developed cultures and technologies specifically designed for cold that our systems never accounted for." Commander Dak entered the chamber, his posture rigid with anger. "I don't need scientific explanations. I need solutions. Why are we losing to creatures who haven't even mastered space travel?" "Because we measured the wrong things," Tay replied simply. "We assessed their weapons, vehicles, and energy systems, all primitive by our standards. But we failed to measure their resilience, their ability to adapt, and their knowledge of their own world." Meanwhile, in a hidden laboratory beneath the ruins of Seoul National University, Professor Park worked tirelessly. The elderly scientist had escaped when the aliens destroyed much of the city. Now he led a team of researchers who studied captured alien technology. "The breakthrough came when we realized they use a completely different approach to energy transfer," Park explained to the military observers. He held up what looked like a small crystal. "Their communication devices operate on principles we've theorized but never implemented. Yet the basic science isn't beyond our understanding." Within weeks, resistance forces around the world began using modified versions of Tellurian communication systems. These allowed humans to intercept alien transmissions and coordinate attacks with unprecedented precision. In the Tellurian command ship, alarms sounded as orbital strike systems came online. "Enough of this ground war," Commander Dak declared. "We'll destroy their resistance centers from orbit. Begin targeting major human encampments." What Dak didn't know was that Jin, a young technician who had been captured during the initial invasion, had been working as a saboteur. After months of careful observation, she had gained enough access to alter critical systems. As the Tellurian weapons powered up, Jin made her move. She didn't need to understand all of the alien technology. Professor Park's team had identified key weaknesses in the targeting systems. Jin's job was simply to introduce a small error, one, that would grow exponentially when the weapons fired. "Weapons at full power, Commander," reported the weapons officer. "Fire on the coordinates," Dak ordered, a cruel smile forming on his face. The massive energy beams shot from the ship and immediately curved back toward other vessels in the Tellurian fleet. 2 support ships exploded before emergency systems could shut down the attack. Chaos erupted on the command ship. "What happened?" Dak demanded. "The targeting system malfunctioned," stammered the officer. "It's as if someone recalibrated it." In the confusion, Jin slipped away to an escape pod. Her part of Operation Snowfall was complete. On Earth, Major Song received the news with grim satisfaction. "Phase 1 complete," he told the assembled resistance leaders. "The aliens are in disarray. Their orbital weapons are offline." "What about Phase 2? Asked a general from Canada. "Captain June's teams are already in position," Song replied. "Professor Park has developed devices that can disrupt their shield technology completely. We move at dawn." In the far north, June and Hana prepared their teams for the assault on the main Tellurian ground base. The temperature had dropped to 50 below zero, conditions that would push humans to their limits but would render the aliens nearly helpless. "Remember," June told his fighters, "they underestimated us from the beginning. That's their greatest weakness, and our greatest strength. As dawn approached, humans around the northern hemisphere prepared for the coordinated attack that would change the course of the invasion. The aliens had brought superior technology to Earth, but they were about to learn that technology alone wasn't enough to conquer the human spirit. The blizzard swept across the northern territories with savage intensity. Visibility dropped to near zero as snow whipped through the air. For the Tellurians, it was a nightmare. Their sensors failed completely in such conditions. For humans, it was the perfect moment to strike. Colonel Sun checked his watch. The coordinated attack would begin in exactly 5 minutes. Around him, 200 fighters prepared their weapons. They wore white winter gear, making them nearly invisible against the snow. These weren't professional soldiers, but a mix of military personnel and civilians who had trained for this moment for months. "Remember the plan," Sun said. "Their shields won't function in this cold. Their weapons will be sluggish. We have the advantage." Across the frozen landscape, similar groups waited. Operation Snowfall involved simultaneous attacks on every major Tellurian base in the northern hemisphere. Inside the main alien compound, Captain Lee of the Tellurian forces was growing increasingly anxious. Their long-range sensors had been offline for hours. The short-range systems showed nothing but static. "This weather is impossible," he complained. "How do humans live in such conditions?" "They've adapted over thousands of years," replied his science officer. "Their bodies can withstand cold that would kill one of us in minutes without protection." "Increase the shield power," Lee ordered, "and keep the patrols close to the base." But the shields were already failing. The energy crystals that powered them couldn't maintain stable reactions in the extreme cold, and the patrols could barely move in their increasingly rigid armor. At exactly 0600 hours, Operation Snowfall began. Engineer Min activated the devices Professor Park had created, small units that broadcast frequencies that disrupted Tellurian shields completely. Across the snow-covered landscape, alien defenses suddenly failed. Sun gave the signal and his fighters moved forward. They used simple weapons, rifles, shotguns, even bows and arrows, but each was effective against the now unprotected aliens. The human fighters moved swiftly across the snow on skis and snowshoes, attacking from all directions at once. The Tellurians tried to respond, but their movements were slow, their reactions dulled by the cold. Their energy weapons, designed for precision, became unreliable in the extreme conditions. In the command center, Lee received desperate reports from all sectors. "We're being overrun. Humans everywhere, shields down." He tried to contact the orbital fleet, but communication was impossible. The sabotage by Jin had damaged those systems beyond quick repair. "Fight back," Lee shouted over the communication system. "They're just primitives." But these primitives had planned carefully. Min's team planted explosive charges at key structural points of the base. When they detonated, the alien facility began to collapse. Sun led the charge into the main building. His fighters moved with practiced efficiency, clearing rooms, securing corridors. They had trained for months for this moment, using mock-ups based on information gathered by scouts and captives. Lee grabbed a weapon and prepared for a last stand. When Sun's team broke through the final door, the Tellurian captain fired wildly, hitting 2 human fighters before a shot from Sun's rifle struck him in the chest. Purple blood splattered across the white snow that had blown in through the damaged roof. It was a stark visual that would be repeated across battlefields throughout the northern regions, alien blood on pristine snow. By nightfall, the main Tellurian base had fallen. Similar reports came in from Alaska, Siberia, Northern Europe, and Canada. Operation Snowfall had been a stunning success. Sun stood outside the captured facility, watching as his fighters secured alien technology and prisoners. The blizzard had passed, leaving a clear, star-filled sky. The temperature had dropped even further, but the humans moved comfortably in their winter gear. "They never understood," he said to Min as they surveyed the battlefield. "They thought technology made them superior. They didn't realize that surviving on Earth had made us stronger than they could imagine." Around them, the snow was stained with patches of purple, a vivid reminder of the price the aliens had paid for underestimating humanity. The victory over the Tellurians changed Earth forever. 1 month after Operation Snowfall, humanity stood united as never before. Ancient enemies had become allies against a common threat. The aliens who had arrived as conquerors were now prisoners and refugees. Dr. Yoon worked tirelessly in her laboratory, studying Tellurian biology and technology. The captured aliens provided valuable information, some willingly, others not. What she discovered shocked world leaders. They're part of an empire that spans 27 star systems, she explained, during an emergency United Nations session. Earth isn't their first target, merely their latest. They've conquered and enslaved a dozen other species. The revelation transformed humanity's perspective. They weren't just fighting for Earth. They were potentially fighting for other oppressed civilizations across the galaxy. Commander Dak, once proud and arrogant, now sat in a specially designed cell. The environment was kept warm enough for his survival but cool enough to remind him of his defeat. Colonel Sun visited him regularly, not out of cruelty, but curiosity. "Why did you think it would be easy to conquer us?" Sun asked during one such visit. Dak looked up. His once intimidating presence diminished. "Every world we conquered fell quickly. Your technology is primitive, your bodies seem fragile. We had no reason to think you would be different." "You measured the wrong things," Sun replied. "Technology can be built. Weapons can be designed. But the will to survive, to fight for your home, that comes from within." Around the world, humans worked to understand and adapt Tellurian technology. Spaceships that had brought invaders were studied and modified. Scientists who had once worked on climate models and medical research now focused on defense systems and faster-than-light travel. The United Nations established the Earth Defense Force, the first truly global military organization in human history. Its mission was clear: protect Earth and prepare for possible retaliation from the greater Tellurian Empire. "We can't wait for them to come to us again," Major Song told the newly formed Earth Defense Council. "We need to take the fight to them, not to conquer but to secure our future." Captain June stood on the bridge of the renamed Starship Hope, formerly a Tellurian attack vessel. The ship had been reconstructed with a combination of alien and human technology. Beside him stood Dr. Hana, now the chief science officer of Earth's first interstellar mission. "The prisoners say there are resistance movements on several conquered worlds," June said, studying the star chart. "If we can make contact, form alliances, we might be able to overthrow the entire empire," Hana finished, "or at least secure our place in the galaxy." The crew of the Hope was small but diverse, the best minds and bravest hearts Earth had to offer. Their mission was part diplomacy, part reconnaissance, part liberation force. They would seek out other species who had suffered under Tellurian, rule and offer them something the Empire never had: partnership rather than subjugation. As the ship prepared for departure, Commander Dak was brought to witness the launch. The former conqueror watched in disbelief as humans mastered in months what had taken his species centuries to develop. "How is this possible?" he asked Sun, who stood guard beside him. "You still don't understand," Sun replied. "Your greatest mistake wasn't attacking Earth. It was underestimating humanity. We've spent our entire history adapting, surviving, overcoming. It's who we are." The Hope rose into the sky, carrying humanity's spirit to the stars. On the snow-covered ground below, the gathered crowd cheered. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger. The blood on the snow had not been shed in vain, and somewhere in the vastness of space other beings waited, some oppressors, some oppressed, unaware that everything was about to change. Humanity was coming, and they would never be underestimated again.